Look at this. Look how beautiful this is. Look at all the stuff.
So pretty.
Everything and then everything plus.
Wait, this is really funny.
That's such a dumb joke.
I can't believe they let you do this. Wait, hold up.
It's capitalism, baby.
But it would be funny. Right now, the everything for $1 a month is recommended by creator. Can you make the everything plus the one that's recommended by creator? Because that would be very funny.
Yeah, I
to be like, we
can
recommend you do the 15,000 to us.
I can.
We recommend you do everything plus.
All right, refresh it.
Oh boy.
Yes, that's so much funnier.
Recommended by creator.
Everything. I love that you can. Let me tell you, the comedy of just bullet point everything. It's like a bullet thing. You can gift this to your friends and family.
Oh boy.
I'm very proud of this.
That's so good. We do need to like post some stuff on there before we get. I don't know. It's probably illegal or something, right?
What?
I don't think it is, which is nuts to just like, hey, would you like to subscribe to literally nothing for 15,000?
You're subscribing to
nothing.
Everything, Aaron.
It's everything plus.
Yeah.
It's everything plus.
Everything and plus.
Is there a reason that the about is episode 43 Contract to Kill?
Because that's the one that starts out with the
one that start. Oh,
that's like the best encapsulation of what we do.
This is exactly what the nerds want.
A friend got burned.
I see dead.
We screwed up.
It's been so long.
What did we do?
We screwed up big
We
time.
screwed up.
Well, we watched a trilogy of films in reverse order.
Yep.
Probably.
So,
Yep. We screwed up.
Here's my question: I've seen all three of these movies. Has anyone seen the other two?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Nope. Cinephile Aaron over here.
And I'll tell you one thing. This was actually really interesting, and I feel like you needed the context from the first two.
Yes.
And I didn't know.
There was a lot of context.
I didn't know that there was a trilogy involved here.
It is definitely the end of a trilogy.
When we first pitched, I think it was when I first pitched the idea of doing M. Night Shyamalan in reverse, starting with Trap. I didn't know that there was a trilogy in the middle, and
Yeah.
I'm regretting it now because
I actually
I
did.
really wish I had the context because this was
Well,
cool.
see,
but
I agree. I wish I had the context. I'm sure it'd make a lot more sense. I'm sure it would be, a better watching experience.
Yeah.
But I'm still kind of glad because now I kind of want to unpack like what it's like to watch this movie with no other context.
okay,
Yeah. And
Like,
I
I
can tell
think
you
we
what
can
it's
kinda have
like
some
to
fun.
watch this movie just like as
Yeah, exactly.
a movie.
Like we can give a new perspective on this. Especially because this was not a normal trilogy. This was not like so I have not seen the other movies. I've looked up I've tried to look up basically a bunch, like as much as I can about this movie without actually seeing the plots of the other movie.
Oh.
Like I want this to be an honest, I didn't just look up a plot synopsis of Unbreakable and Split. I want this to be like the true experience. I only watched this. I just was curious. So I looked up background information of how it came about.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I know that this was kind of he made one movie, not planning to make a trilogy, and then years later used a cut character from that first movie to make a second movie that then he stealth reveals to be a sequel spin-off, and then made a trilogy after that one did really well at the box office.
yeah.
So I know all of this kind of stuff, but I don't know the plot other than what we learn from in Glass. Because I wanted to keep myself pure. I wanted this to be
Pure.
honest.
I don't think we've said we are talking about 2019's Glass, directed by M.
We are
Night
the broken.
Shyamalan.
We are purified by the pain, or whatever he says in that movie.
I've seen all the
So,
movies.
What's your name?
I'm Aaron. I've seen
And
all
Aaron
of
has seen all the movies. I'm Zach. I have not seen the other movies.
I'm Hans. I have also not seen the other movies.
Unbreakable's kind of a classic. That's from like early Shyamalan. That's like
I know.
Considered one of his best.
It's slightly surprising I haven't seen it. We know
Yeah.
Hans. We know it's not surprising that he hasn't seen this.
I'm actually more surprised, Zach, that you have not seen Split, the second
I really
movie
want
in
to.
this trilogy. It's
Looks good.
great.
Didn't get around to it. We're gonna watch it and talk about it.
I think it's
next
actually
time.
probably better than Unbreakable, but
Ooh.
yeah, that doesn't really mean a whole lot to you. But what
I know. Yeah, well, this movie you haven't seen. I think it's actually better than this other movie I haven't seen. Oh, damn, dude, that's crazy, dog.
I will say this is,
man.
in my opinion, and from what I can find, pretty much everybody else's opinion, the weakest of the trilogy.
Hmm.
But anyway,
Good to know.
What's it
Also,
about?
for people that haven't seen the rest of the trilogy. So, Glass is about Mr. Glass.
is
kind
it
of.
though?
Okay. So, Glass is the third movie in a trilogy about superheroes, more metatextually about superheroes than about superheroes.
Yes.
This is like comic book movie without being like the standard typical like cape comic book
But
movie that you
being
expect.
much more about comic books than most
That's
comic
the
book
thing.
movies.
Oh, no. You're getting into this. You're getting into the post summary discussion. There's a whole point. We need to unpack that for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Superheroes in this world, in the world of Glass / Unbreakable / Splits, superheroes exist, but they are not known to exist by the larger population.
Mhm.
These enhanced individuals, we'll call them. Bruce Willis is patrolling the streets as kind of like Luke Cage, I guess would be the close. Like
Pretty close to Luke Cage.
he can't fly, but he's durable, he's strong, but he can touch people and like see their crimes. It's like a semi-psychic.
So that's not explained in this movie. It's explained in the first movie.
I'm sure.
They just assume
I'm
that you know
just
how it
relaying
works.
this movie. I'm sure there's other details. I'm sure there's things I'll technically be wrong about that help from the other movies. We're just talking about this movie. We demonstrate that he's just kind of patrolling the streets with his son as his like guy in the chair, his earpiece.
Mhm.
He's patrolling the streets. He's trying to track down the serial killer who appears to be the main villain from Splits, who is disclaimer, this is not an accurate representation of any real life mental situation, mental disorder of any kind. In this movie's universe, his version of DID, like dissociative identity disorder, is that he has, I think, 10 or 12 different personalities that manifest.
24.
24. Oh, 24.
I don't want to keep breaking in with stuff from the other movie, so I won't. It's explained in the second movie.
But in this one, he has multiple personalities that he cycles between. They're all fighting for the light, which is, access to being on top, being the personality that's shown. And he has kidnapped some cheerleaders. Bruce Willis the overseer goes to rescue these cheerleaders, and they are both detained during the course of that fight. They are taken to a psychiatric hospital. They're taken to Arkham Asylum,
Basically, yeah.
where they're rejoined by Samuel L. Jackson, Mr. Glass, who I did piece together. He was in Unbreakable. He was like the main villain. Bruce Willis has fought him before, and he's just kind of been here. Like, he's been chilling here for a while, and we got some new arrivals. Sarah Paulson is here, and she is a doctor who specializes, ostensibly here at the beginning, she presents herself as a doctor who specializes in people who have these delusions of grandeur that they are superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
So her specialty is basically these three people. So they have special little holding cells designed to keep them contained. Like, so Split Guy, when he starts freaking out and tries to escape, it shines a bunch of bright lights in his eyes, and that stops him. That puts down like the violent personalities. Bruce Willis, he's afraid of water. I assume this happened in Unbreakable because he almost drowned as a kid. So he has like an irrational like aquaphobia. So they just have a big water tank that'll flood it if he tries to escape. And Mr. Glass, it appears, is just near vegetative sedated states. Sarah Paulson tries these various techniques to try to diagnose them, even like bringing them all like into a room together at the same time and just telling them, you're all delusional, you're not superheroes. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
Then we actually learn Mr. Glass has been orchestrating things this whole time. He's not actually just like down for it. Like, he's here, he's pulling the strings, he's planning escape. So he's like making it look as though he's getting caught, but really that's not him getting caught. That's really him planning his escape. They try to like give him a lobotomy, but he like sabotages the machines, so like the laser doesn't work. So he kills his caretaker, and he's like, hey, me and you, Split Guy, we're gonna get out of here. So they plan their escape. They're doing their escape. And he goes to Bruce Willis and says, I'm going to go to this grand unveiling of this building. Gonna blow it up. There's a chemical plant there. Gonna blow it up. Gonna do some real supervillain shit. And thousands of people are gonna die, and it's gonna reveal our abilities to the world. Those abilities being me. I'm a guy in a wheelchair who's really smart, and this guy can kind of go crazy and climb up walls. We're gonna reveal that to the world, and that's gonna change everything.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can bust out of here, you can stop us. So Bruce Willis does, in fact, bust out of there. So they're not delusional. They do have superpowers. And then during the course of the escape, Bruce Willis confronts them outside the hospital. Oh, and the main Anya Taylor-Joy from Split was roped in. Like they've roped in basically one person for each of these superheroes: Bruce Willis's son, Mr. Glass's mother, and Anya Taylor-Joy, who was a previous kidnapping victim of Mr. Split, and is the only person that can kind of calm him down.
Because Anya Taylor-Joy is, for some reason, almost typecast as like the victim of a kidnapper/murderer who ends up befriending the kidnapper/murderer. She's done this in multiple movies.
Yeah. It's, if you're going to be typecast, it's certainly there's no other pigeons in that hole. Like,
no, she is the only pigeon in that hole.
So they have their superhero fight, and this isn't me just saying, they have their superhero fight outside, because literally the entire time Samuel L. Jackson is now it's time for us to have our superhero fight right outside.
Yeah. Like
he's narrating it like a person who actively reads comics and like is living this out like it is a comic. Because he's like an expert in comics.
Yeah.
I calm yourself.
I can't.
I know. During the course of this, all of them die. Anya Taylor-Joy calms down Split Guy, and then they shoot him. They drown, like these guards come and they just like drown Bruce Willis. And Glass just gets, for the guy who has the SpongeBob disease of glass bones and paper skin, he just gets pulverized. He's not doing well. But during the course of this, Sarah Paulson reveals, hey, actually, we're part of some secret society. They all have like matching clover tattoos, and we just like put down superheroes. Like when we hear that superheroes are going on, we just done, killed, silenced. So she goes to her secret meeting of the anti-superhero society and is like, hey, took out these superheroes. I'm going to the next city to take down other superheroes. But then while she's at a comic book store, she hears people and some nerds in the background going, oh, that's the thing with the brilliant genius is there's always a twist. And she goes back. The twist is he typed some lines in the Windows terminal to live stream the security cameras that she thought were deleted. And there's backup of them. And so now our three sidekicks, that's what they are, our three sidekicks, release that to the world and reveal that superheroes are real. And there's the movie. Okay, now keep me pure, keep me virginal. I don't know the other movies, but is that so at hard. Least like...
That is how this movie works, yes. Okay, I will say there are certain points... You didn't get anything wrong. Like, you didn't say anything that you would not have said had you seen the other movies. Well, maybe not exactly. Like, we know a whole lot more about Samuel L. Jackson's character than we get in this movie.
Which is funny because this is the one named after his character.
Yeah. Like, we learn nothing new about Glass in the movie Glass.
And also for a movie called Glass, he does not he doesn't do anything. He doesn't have any lines until like an hour in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's silent for most of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, one thing I'll say, just from Unbreakable, where we meet him for the first time, it's like he's not just like an expert in comic books. Like, he is an art collector, an art dealer who specializes in like comic book art, like first editions and like prints of original art from comic book artists and stuff. Like, he's dedicated his entire life to comic book art. He has an encyclopedic knowledge of comic books and artists and their stories and stuff. And he has this whole like theory about where these stories of heroes come from. He said he believes that they are rooted in fact.
And he does hint towards that in this movie. He mentions like, oh, these are actually like Superman, like the first like superheroes wear spandex. They were, influenced by the strong man. Like, we have these true things in society that like this cultural just understanding, this collective knowledge that shows up in comic books.
Yeah.
That they're almost like inadvertently documenting real feats.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was the conclusion of a trilogy. As far as conclusions of trilogies go, where I haven't seen the first two entries in the trilogy.
So, did you feel that you were like really missing anything?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah, 100%. I had no idea what was going on okay. in the beginning.
Yeah.
In the like, there, you can definitely tell that Mr. Glass has. There's details about this man that we should know. Something happened to him previously that we should know about. Obviously, Bruce Willis probably also the same sort of thing. James McAvoy's character probably also the same sort of thing. And from what I gather, from what you said, that's true.
I would say it's true for everybody but Bruce Willis's character.
Oh, really? Well, yeah.
Like,
I guess I can see that, but it feels like there should be more.
Watch Unbreakable and you'd be like, I feel like I should know more about this guy.
Well, we're gonna watch Unbreakable. We're gonna watch Split.
We'll watch that.
Then we're gonna watch Unbreakable like 10 movies from now.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it definitely. I don't think it detracted from the experience that much. I liked it. This is a fun movie. It was interesting the whole time.
Yeah, I liked it.
It was fine.
It's fine.
So this is
we got here and then here and then here.
So this
just
is
a straight
where
slope.
I think my having watched the previous movies hurts. So it helps in that I know more about these characters. But I will say the other movies are much better movies. So every time something happens or like it relies on you remembering stuff from the previous movies, I'm like, oh wow. Yeah, that other movie just did this idea way better. Like,
got it. Okay.
Because what I was feeling was, when you like watch a person reviewing a movie and like they give like a not great review on it, but you're like, wow, this person's just dumb. They don't know anything about this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Here, the problem is I feel like any critique I give, it is literally just, oh, this guy is dumb and doesn't know anything about it. Why should I take his opinion? So everything I say, or Han says, take it with a grain of salt. Like, I don't know anything about this universe or anything.
Yeah, we did this wrong. Incorrect.
But I do feel like, knowing somewhat of the history, if Unbreakable came out and you're just like a big Unbreakable head, if you're just like, I love my man Bruce Willis, Unbreakable's great, and then like 10 or something years later, this movie Split comes out, doesn't advertise itself as connected, but then at the end there's a reveal like, oh,
great.
Actually this is part of a trilogy and a third one's coming out, and then that trilogy is this. I could, like, if you saw Unbreakable in theaters and you were a fan of it, I have to imagine this disappointed some people.
Yeah.
Like, just like, oh, they just meet up, this big team up, and they just all die, but, like, they reveal that superheroes are, like...
The whole movie takes place in the mental hospital.
Yeah, because even
that big climactic battle of the skyscraper never happens.
Like, I know this is a purposeful commentary, but they hype up, like, there's news broadcasts hinting towards it before, like, Mr. Glass's plan is revealed. Like, Philadelphia's newest, tallest skyscraper. It has these solar panels that move all fun. And the big fight happens in the parking lot right outside the mental hospital of them just kind of wanting to go to the skyscraper. Like, I know this is on purpose.
That was intentional.
I know it's intentional, but I do have to imagine that, like, if you had seen the other movies and were anticipating this movie, this had to be disappointing. But I liked it. There were some parts that were pretty slow.
It wasn't bad. I enjoyed it.
I'd probably do a light to medium 3.5. Maybe during the parts where it's really cooking, that's like that's a high 3.5. And there are parts of this movie that are a light 3.5.
That's funny. This is a solid 3.5. Liked it for me.
This is a 3.5. I don't like it. I would actually check my letterbox, but the app is borked right now, and I can't see it. I've watched a couple movies that I haven't been able to log on Letterboxd because
oh no,
I don't know what's up. But yeah, I think it was I gave it 3.5 stars because like it was good. I enjoyed it.
But you're like a disappointed 3.5 stars. Hans
Yeah.
is like, I liked it 3.5 stars, and I'm like a cool to warm on it 3.5 stars. Every shade of 3.5 stars.
Yeah, I was hoping for 4 at least, because I think the other movies are at least 4 stars, and I was hoping that this would be that, and it wasn't. I will say I would watch the Netflix or Disney Plus spinoff of this movie that just follows like those agents that just kill superheroes. I think it'd be kind of fun.
That would be pretty fun. Yeah. So and from what I can tell, they're not planning any future movies. This is the end of the trilogy. This is the only trilogy M. Night Shyamalan's in. Like, this is not a typical thing. He doesn't do franchises.
No.
And even this one, he didn't do like most franchises. He took like an abandoned character and then later had to negotiate the rights for this other character, and it's interesting. But shoot, what was it that I said we were gonna unpack later on that you started to get into?
I don't know. I have a few notes here I can read.
Yeah, go ahead. Start on the notes. Yeah.
My first thought was, wait, is that the same kid from Unbreakable? It is the same kid from Unbreakable, just much older because it's been forever since Unbreakable.
Oh, it's like a boyhood thing. It's the same actor. He actually grew up.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's cool.
There's also they have a couple scenes in a comic book store, and there's just like walls of fake comic books. Like they must have paid some artists to like make up comic book characters. That was probably really fun, and I enjoyed seeing all of these fake comic books. And, like there's a part where Anya Taylor-Joy, who she goes and like buys a bunch of comic books and just like sits around and reads them and is like trying to get into the head of Glass and trying to figure out what's going on
Mr.
Yeah,
Glass.
Mr. Glass.
First name Mr. Last name Glass.
This is true. And it's great just like seeing these comics that were made for this movie. It's just really fun. And then, Bruce Willis's character dies in this movie. And my note here about that is, man, killed by a Philly pothole. Because he has his face held down into the water of a pothole and drowns. That's a very Philadelphia way to go out.
Or like getting into a fist fight, like, in the parking lot of the Eagles tailgate while choking on a cheesesteak.
That you bought at a Wawa. But no, I mean, I enjoyed the movie. It just was constantly asking me to think about other better movies.
Fair. Which, in this name that we won't mention, but we watched like 50 movies of, that happened quite a few times. So
yeah,
that's a familiar feeling. No, what I want to talk. So what's interesting, what I think is probably the most fascinating part of this movie to talk about is that we've had superhero movie saturation.
Yeah.
Like, Unbreakable came out before we had superhero movies. Like, Unbreakable came out and we were just like, oh, Blade. That there was like that Adam West Batman. Like, superhero movies were not like this huge cultural force. And then both of these kind of came out during like peak MCU.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that those movies are definitely like the typical superhero fare is like, you can tell it's like derived from comics. Like, you have storylines that are influenced by comics, but are almost entirely disconnected from comics.
Mm-hmm.
Like, from their cultural influence, from the way they do storytelling. Like, movie narratives and comic narratives are very different for good reason. I'm not saying superhero movies should have like comic narratives, because that just wouldn't work. It's like a fundamentally different medium, but they are just pretty much completely detached, other than like loose inspiration from the source material. So like, characters get shuffled around, costumes get changed, like plot lines are different, but like they draw upon like the ideas of comics more than actual comics. But this movie is like less of a superhero movie. It's not a typical superhero movie you would expect, but it like is so connected to not superheroes, but like comics
as an idea,
like as a medium, as a cultural force, as an idea, as like a hobby, as an industry. Like, this is so much more tied into comic books than like what you would call a comic book movie.
Yeah,
which is why you started to touch on when I was still like mid review.
Yeah,
so I just kind of wanted to like start off with that.
Well, like there's
the
main, I don't even know if you call that the villain or whatever, like the Clover organization. They figure out that Glass had something else going on because she overhears a conversation between two comic book nerds. Like, comics and comics culture and comics art are incredibly central to not just the feel, but even like the very plot of everything. But I mean, I don't know. I want to say that it's like structure like a comic book narrative, but I don't know if I can say that with confidence.
No, yeah, I wouldn't say it's really, as much as Mr. Glass tries to narrate how this is structured like a comic book.
They try really hard.
Like a three act movie. Like, it's not structured like a comic at all. It's still like, he's kind of more just narrating comic tropes than like comic pacing.
Yeah.
But I just have to imagine that if you're a person who's like if you like go to your comic book shop weekly, if you've read like the entire run of Spectacular Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man and like all these different, like if you're big into comics, I think a lot of those people are kind of underserved by the comic book movie because they just go, oh, hey, nerds, kind of cool, thanks for the idea, but we're going to do something completely different. And I'm not saying like every superhero movie needs to have a character literally walk into a comic shop.
No.
But even when you have like something like Deadpool, like Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool,
Mm-hmm.
he like references other movies. He references Hugh Jackman as an actor. He references like Deadpool as the character in X-Men Origins Wolverine, but he never really, if there's one character who should like reference, like outright say like, wow, this is just like a comic. Like he doesn't do that. Like even at its most self-referential, the idea of comics never really enters the typical comic book movie.
So then here's a different question. So I asked before how familiar you are with the other two movies in this movie trilogy. How familiar are you both with comic books as a medium?
Not at all.
I'm not that deep in. I have read like, you know, a lot of the major ones like Infinite Crisis, like Watchmen, like, you know, for the, hey, I want to be into comics. What are like the top 20 recommendations? I've read those, but I'm not like going to the comic book store, like queuing up, like reading every single run of everything that comes out.
Okay. Then I am probably most familiar with comics.
You're the resident expert in multiple regards this episode.
This is weird.
You have like, you just told me, you just were telling us how you have like 700 issues just like laying around your
that
basement.
I haven't read all those. That's not, no, because I
But
bought
that's
a
comic
lot
book
of
collector stuff there.
I bought like a bunch of comics from a guy who was getting married, and his fiance told him, you have to get rid of these. And so he got rid of them. I didn't like read all of those, but in my previous assignment, I was.
But you have like at numerous times like gone to a comic shop like weekly or something.
Yeah,
weekly,
like
picked
you
up
can
the latest
see.
issue. Like,
this is great podcast content, but like that stag right here. That's some of my comic books. The recent ones that I bought, individual issues.
so yeah, no. So you're definitely the resident.
Yeah,
expert on
Like I'm a
this.
big fan of Mike Mignola, although it's pretty easy to be a big fan of Mike Mignola. If you know who that is, good for you. That's awesome. Thank you. You know who you are. But he's also like one of the biggest names. I will not say I'm a comics expert. It's like a whole gigantic thing that I know very little about, but apparently in this group I know the most about and have at least have the most like intimate personal contact with. Like I would regularly go to my comic shop in my where I was living previously. I'd go there like once a week or so, both for comic books and for like Magic the Gathering events and stuff. If that tells you what kind of person I am.
Hey guys, you want to go to a comic book shop, buy some magic cards.
Played Warhammer there a few times.
Oh my! Stop it! Now you're just. Okay, but yeah, so you're the resident expert. So yeah, I don't know. As that's whatever that is. How does this feel compared to the typical like CBM?
My feeling was that the movie likes to talk about comic books.
Mr. Glass likes to talk about comic books.
It does not like to talk about comic books the way that comics fans do. Like it felt like to me, so like the conversation that's happening between the two comic book nerds in the background didn't feel like a conversation that like two real comic nerds would have.
Oh no, not at all.
That did feel like we need you
real
to realize
human beings,
the twist of the movie.
Real human beings would never talk that way ever.
Like
I don't care what like specific subsect of nerddom you live in. That's not how people talk.
Yeah, it didn't feel real. And in fact,
that was honestly just M. Night Shyamalan wrote a Shyamalan twist in his movie, and he's like, "Oh, how do I make the Shyamalan twist come?"
Well,
and he just writes a character going, "Hey, there's a Shyamalan twist. You should go find the Shyamalan twist."
That's the most glaring moment of it. I would venture to say that every time anyone talks directly about comic books in this movie, they talk about it in a weird way that people who actually like comics don't talk about comics that way. So like Anya Taylor-Joy, she goes to that same comic book. There's like one comic book shop in Philadelphia that everyone goes to apparently.
Yeah.
And so like Anya Taylor-Joy goes to buy her comic books and she's talking to the guy who runs the shop. And just the conversation they have here, I can't really even recount it because again, I watched this movie like 2 weeks ago. But it's just really awkward, and I've never heard, because like I have walked into a comic shop and said, "Hello, owner of this comic shop." I didn't say that, but
and you're going to tell us about what sounds like real, actual human dialogue, and that's what you open with.
No, I went and said, "Hey, man, I'm new to comics. I've read this, and this. I really enjoyed them. I like things like this. What would you suggest?" And then so he takes me over to like the big bookcase full of like annuals and like volume sets, like paperback sets of like collected volumes and things. And he says, oh, if you like this, then you'd probably like this, 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 and this. Flip through them. If you find something you like, buy it, and then come back in a couple weeks and tell me what you thought about it, and we'll try to help. Like, I'll try to help you find something you enjoy. Like, that is a normal human conversation, and one that one has about this particular medium of art. That conversation never happened in this movie. Instead, people talked about, like, in a very inhuman way, like the arc of how a distant idea of comic book stories works. And it just felt really awkward and strange. Every time someone explicitly started talking about comic books as an idea, as an art form, it got very awkward and strange very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. That is also just an accusation that gets lobbied against M. Night Shyamalan, sometimes fairly, sometimes unfairly.
Yeah.
That, like, he could be deep into the world. He could be, like, you know, Steve Ditko's best friend and, like, be truly deep in, like, the world of comics. But maybe that's just how his dialogue sounds for this movie. But also, I think half of it is just, like, this movie is very narratively relying on characters talking about these comics in a specific way.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't really have a scene to do what you pointed out that would be more accurate to real world experience. Like, when they're talking about comics, they are talking about comics, but they're talking about something else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're kind of explaining, why is this guy acting this way? So they need to talk about, like, some kind of trope that vaguely appears in comics, but not in the way a real human would talk about it.
Here's okay. I'm gonna go back to my old habits of being script doctor. You could have a scene. Anya Taylor-Joy goes into the comic book store and says, "Hey, I don't really know anything about comics, but you know, someone I know told me that they really enjoy them and like they're really interesting. I'm kind of interested in stories about people with like multiple identities. Do you have anything like that?" And then the guy at the comic book store will be like, "Oh yeah, here's this great, here's this annual from 10 years ago that was really famous. We have some copies of this. Here, like, take this one and read about it and come back and tell me what you think, and we'll try to find some other things you like." And then she flips through that and it's like, "Oh, this gives me an insight into what was it, James McAvoy, right?
Yeah.
What James McAvoy's whole deal is, or like, oh, there's this character in here who's like a brainiac." And that's what Mr. Glass is like. That could have been a scene, and that just didn't happen. That was almost the scene. That's almost.
That's like they kind of get the hints of that scene, right?
But it just happens in such an inhuman, weird, stilted way.
Yeah. That's I like that. I like that script doctor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's my comic book hero name, the script doctor.
The script doctor.
I'm a meta hero. I go back and like rewrite previous scenes in the comic, and then that's how it always was.
So do you think, not necessarily this was the cure-all that would fix it, but do you think this could have benefited, detracted, or just neutral, like not changed at all, if they did like negotiate the rights to real heroes? Like if she could pick up an Incredible Hulk comic book and read about this unassuming frail man that can also turn into a giant beast. Like, if they could relay it to real superheroes that we actually, instead of like generic comic about guy that turns into a monster, like, do you think if she picked up a Morbius comic or something, like, would that help improve? Or do you think that could like have more, like, do you think there is a difference in making this movie that is a commentary on comics that uses real characters that we're all familiar with? Or do you think that doesn't matter?
I think that might have actually detracted from it. For a couple reasons. One, because if I don't know who this character is, there's no functional difference between that and a brand new character that was just made up just for this movie.
Okay, so you're saying the person who is familiar with Glass, but not the Incredible Hulk.
Well, okay, Incredible Hulk, fine. But like Morbius, no, I wouldn't. No.
Well, okay, don't use Morbius.
It's a Morbin
I
time.
did say Morbius, but that's not a real example. Or if you're for Bruce Willis's character, if she picks up a Superman comic,
They talk about Superman.
they do. So, like, do you think like actually getting the license of those comics could?
I think it would have to be like Superman, Batman. That's really it.
It has to be one that literally every single human being on this planet has.
Yeah, it'd have to be inescapable. And then I think that's the first way it could go wrong. If you pick the wrong comic character, it might get lost. People might not know who that is. And then the other way you end up picking a character that, like, someone who does know who that character is, maybe it doesn't map as well onto the characters in the movie. So I think it is the safer route to just make up a new character, make up a new comic character, about whom we know basically nothing, just enough to make the movie work, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Like about whom you could say, he's like the split guy that's here.
Yeah.
I think if you followed your suggestion for how the scene in the comic shop with Anya Taylor-Joy should have gone, it would play better if it was a completely made-up character, where the guy at the comic store got to explain that very briefly. It would still serve the same purpose.
Yeah. But I wasn't there in the writer's room when M. Night Shyamalan was putting this one together.
To be fair, the writer's room is, I think, literally just M. Night Shyamalan. I don't think he has a writer's room.
Okay, well, I wasn't at M. Night Shyamalan's house when he wrote this.
We should. M. Night Shyamalan, please invite us over. We'll come over.
Let me read the script before.
So-
Just let me read it.
We're not that far from Philly.
Speaking of him,
Yeah, what about him?
this whole the project here is to talk about
Yes.
the influence of the oeuvre. Yeah, of that person. What are his influences on this movie? Because I can tell you one that the big one for me, the camera work, the actors looking directly into the camera. I'm learning, and again, we're doing this wrong. We're doing this backwards. So this could very well have been a thing since the very beginning, and everybody knows this. But because I've never seen any M. Night Shyamalan movies until now, and we're watching them in reverse, I'm seeing a trend. He really, really likes that.
I mean, I would definitely agree. But not just that one example, like so much of the camera work, like through and through the entire time you're watching, this feels so much like how other M. Night Shyamalan films have been shot. This does have the same cinematographer as Old, and actually Old and Servant. He hasn't worked on like all of M. Night Shyamalan's films. But
that makes sense.
Like you mentioned, the characters looking in the camera.
Although Servant is a little different.
Yeah. Honestly, there's this trick that they did use in Old that I've also seen pop up in other movies. They like to be in the center of the action with things going around and just do like a circular panning shot around. Like that happened numerous times in Old. And there's a few scenes here where the camera just kind of at a very measured, like at the same speed, like not slowing up or slowing down or anything, just goes around a room as things are happening around it. And the other main one that I've really now noticed as a motif, very careful attention paid not to like choosing specifically not to show you things.
Yeah.
Like whenever they're doing the escape and he says like, hey, roll forward while I fight these guys. And you have like Samuel L. Jackson's head, like blocking the fight going on. Or when he tackles the guards and he's like killing them like behind the car. I'm not going to say he's the only filmmaker that does this, but this is something I'm starting to notice and appreciate, is that I feel like M. Night Shyamalan is one of the few filmmakers, and the work he does with his collaborators, with his cinematographers, but for the purposes of the oeuvre, Shyamalan is someone who's like just as concerned with what you don't see and what he doesn't show you as with like what you see and like what he shows you. And it's fascinating, like how much he doesn't show you. For a guy that does a decent amount of like horror, like it's so much of it is like implied or off screen or hidden or obscured.
Yeah.
And not just that, like other things he obscures too, but
oh my gosh, I cannot wait until we watch Split.
I'm really excited for Split. I remember seeing the trailers for that and wanting to watch it. But no, it's just fascinating. There is so much. This feels through and through. This is only we're 5 in. We're not the Shyamalan experts.
No.
But
not yet.
Like in terms of dialogue, this feels like a Shyamalan pick. In terms of like directing and camera movement, cinematography, like pacing, editing. Like
this could not have been made by anyone else.
This is so Shyamalan.
Yeah,
it is very, very much his signature.
Well, and one thing I did really like that I don't know if you probably did notice this. I'm going to guess that y'all did notice this, but during certain moments, he spliced in clips of the other movies.
Yeah. Or at least he spliced in, I assumed these were clips of other, like a lot of the flashbacks. I haven't seen the movies. I was like 90% sure.
Which for me, it was like, especially like clips from Unbreakable, it was kind of like a nostalgia hit. I didn't realize how nostalgic I was for Unbreakable that I saw forever ago, but it was really cool to me. I really liked when he did that. Just a few scenes, because one part of it, I think, in one way, I really loved it because I think it was like interesting, a little clever, and he did a really good job integrating those scenes into this movie. On the other hand, they have a different character to them. Like Unbreakable has this warmth to it that I don't really know how to describe in a different way. Like a reality to it. It's much more intimate and grounded than anything that we've seen from Shyamalan so far, watching his movies backwards, because it's from much earlier in his career. Like a lot of it is much more naturalistic, and like the scenes that he chooses to import into this movie are like conversations that he had that Bruce Willis is having with his family, or like a moment of contemplating his marriage while sitting on the SEPTA train. Really intimate, just these warm, very human moments. And the rest of the movie is not like that at all.
Right.
No.
Yeah. And so it on the one hand, I really like that because it reminded me of this movie that I discovered I'm nostalgic for. On the other hand, it doesn't feel very congruous. Cinematically, it feels congruous until you sit in that flashback for a moment. You're like, oh, this has a different character to it, which also helps realizing that it's a flashback. So I kind of go back and forth on whether it was good or not.
Just imagine, though, if instead of those thoughtful picks from previous movies that might not have the same exact tone, but it's still a thoughtful pick from previous movie that provides more context, right? Imagine if instead of that, you just had a shot of a really young Bruce Willis from one of his previous movies with the paperclip over the picture.
No, we don't talk about this
just
anymore.
Crudely slapped in a frame on a desk.
We don't talk about that anymore.
I don't know who you're talking about. I don't understand the illusion. We're moving on. So
We're not supposed to talk about
things that we did
Voldemort.
like.
No, come on.
Talk about things we
Play
did
with
like.
me in this space.
No, we're not playing in that space.
You're loopy on
Playtime is
NyQuil.
over. Recess is canceled. Things that I did like. A lot of those Shyamalan feelings.
Yeah.
Like watching the movie, those touches, the performances. This is something that I'm very excited for, especially Unbreakable when it comes to this. But watching this movie,
It's going to be a while.
Bruce Willis shows up, and like within the first scene, within like his first 5 lines of dialogue, I'm just like, wow, I really like seeing Bruce Willis in movies.
Yeah.
This isn't a hot take. This isn't controversial, but I'm just like, this guy has a charisma. It's very pleasant to watch him do a thing on a screen. And it's really kind of sad that you don't get to see him in stuff anymore.
It's really sad.
Red is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Really? Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Respect.
That's because he has such like an incredible charisma in
He
that
does.
movie.
And similarly, Samuel L. Jackson, he's in the chair, and you're like, oh yeah, that's Samuel L. Jackson. That's cool. When he starts talking, once you get an hour in, I'm like, wait a minute. I really like Samuel L. Jackson in movies. This guy's great. Like his just line delivery is excellent. Like it's a shame you really only see him in the Capital One commercials anymore. I'd like to see this guy in some more movies.
Well, that and Marvel crap.
Well, yeah. I am actually kind of surprised that they don't really draw much attention to that. Like, I'm not asking for like a cameo or anything, but it's like there's no even hint. There's no even vague gesture towards Nick Fury.
No.
Which I'm glad. I'm not saying I want that.
Yeah,
but it's interesting.
They just pretend that the Marvel movies don't exist. Because if I saw a video of James McAvoy flipping a car over, like at the end of this movie, there's this big reveal, superheroes exist, we have footage. I'd be like, this is some like guerrilla marketing for a new Marvel movie. It wouldn't even faze me.
See, okay, no, we're talking about the things that we like. That's something I didn't like as much.
I'm sorry. Continue.
Because I agree, the whole big grand reveal of these, I get that it's a more grounded take on superheroes, but they do this reveal, and I see James McAvoy flipping the car, and I'm just like, f***ing lamppost junkies. Like, am I right? Like, I don't know if that really if there's enough there to really make a large population stop immediately in their tracks in the middle of, like, this public area and look at their phones and believe that superheroes are real.
You have to assume that in this universe, like, this is a parallel dimension where comic book movies never happened, and, like, comic book stuff is just for turbo nerds. Like, no one cares about comic books at all, except for people who only care about comic books.
But that's fair. Okay, but we have a guy bending a steel pipe, and we have a guy flipping a car. Those are very impressive feats of strength. Those are things I do think a real person in our world could do.
Yeah. I mean, like, I hear stories about people having done that.
Right.
And I don't consider.
I'm not
those
saying
people
that's
to be
easy. I'm not saying
superhuman.
I could do it, but I wouldn't
No.
watch that video, which it was very funny. I don't know if you noticed this detail, but like when he peers over, like Unbreakable's son peers over and looks at the screen, it says like, man bends metal pole with, and then in all capital letters, bare hands.
Mhm.
Like, do we really think that we're going to completely rock, like, you know, all the collective minds of society with just clickbait YouTube thumbnail? Like,
I
that
mean,
would
you
go
can watch
viral. That
strong men on stage rolling up cast iron
right.
frying pans with their bare hands.
Like, in real life, these videos would appear, like, on this show's version of Ellen or Good Morning America, and then no one would talk about it a week later.
Yeah.
Like, but... So I wasn't, like, super warm on the ending. But things I really liked the performances. They were great. Anya Taylor-Joy is fantastic. Sarah
yeah.
Paulson, I love her every time she shows up in something. Like, every single member of the cast was giving a grade A performance. That was fantastic to watch. Just the feel, the lighting, some of the, like, staging, like, costume and, like, scene choices. Like, when all three of them are in that room together, and it's, like, this really pink room, and Sarah Paulson's wearing that pink shirt. That was great. I loved it. That was
great.
fun. Like, it felt like M. Night Shyamalan was like, I'm going to do Wes Anderson for this one scene. And
he's just out there
it's
having
like
fun.
It's like the Shyamalan parts of this movie, minus the narrative, I was a fan of. That's what kind of drags it down to a 3.5 star versus a 4.
Remember when we watched Servant and
Yes.
we all really liked it?
Mhm.
Yes.
And I said something then, which I thought was kind of mean, but I'm going to stand by it. I think the reason I really like this is because it was directed by M. Night Shyamalan and written by someone else.
That was mean, but
but valid.
I see, but I see where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Because there is good writing on display here that I do like.
Yeah.
It's
I
just
don't
kind
think
of,
Shyamalan is a consistently good writer.
yeah,
I
it
think he
feels
has
like a
good ideas. I think they're interesting ideas. Like, I think the idea of an anti-superhero organization that has kept, the reason people don't know that superheroes exist is because there's a cabal of people who just murk superheroes the instant they find out about them. I think that's an interesting idea. I think
and even the way that they
cool.
show that
Yeah.
is like really interesting. Like how they're all in this restaurant and then like one person leaves and it like immediately goes off. And they're just like,
Yeah. I think
okay,
that's
we're alone. We can
cool.
talk now. Like that's cool.
I think that's neat. And I could see like I said, like a Netflix show or an Amazon video show or whatever.
Probably like Amazon Prime.
Probably an Amazon Prime show where like it follows the story of like the one super that they let live because they need him to like track down other supers or something. I think that would be like a fun show. I would watch that. I think that sounds fun.
And that would be the twist at the end is he like one of his super friends dies, so he retreats to other supers and like they die and he realizes that he's the one being tracked. Or like you realize that he's working with the organization. Like you can even put an M. Night Shyamalan twist in there.
Yeah.
But I was just, it was a conclave. I was just really underwhelmed by the ending, by the third act. Like maybe, okay, so as to not be completely uninformed, you can tell me if I'm wrong, if there's something in the other movies that makes this make sense. But like, Mr. Glass is evil. His plan is to do this thing to reveal that the superheroes are real. So is there a reason why Unbreakable Son is like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do exactly what Mr. Glass wants me to do. Like, is there a reason that he does what the villain wants him to do and that's the good ending?
Kind of, but ultimately no.
No.
Not in the way that character, Bruce Willis's son, is portrayed in this movie. So if he were portrayed in the same way that he was in Unbreakable, I would say yes, that makes perfect sense. But this character is much older and he acts differently in I think in actually a believable way in this movie than he did in the first one.
Okay.
He's different in ways that make less sense than if he were still the same.
That's fair. The fact that the three, Anya Taylor-Joy and Unbreakable's kid and Mr. Glass's mom, like all team up to like finish Mr. Glass's plan was weird to me.
Yeah, I don't know why they would
think it was supposed to be weird to me. I don't think that was intentional.
Glass's mom is really supportive all the time of him, even when
I got that vibe. And there's definitely in this movie, without any other knowledge, the amount that they talk about when she's like, "You are not a mistake. I'm glad you exist. I've always told you that you're special."
Yeah.
I can understand why like he's like, "I want to reveal superheroes," and she gets this, and she's like, "I'll help you reveal superheroes, son." That I 100% understand.
Yeah.
The other two are just a little shakier for me.
Anya Taylor-Joy's character, I also understand. doing that. It's really just Bruce Willis's son that I don't think he would go along with it.
Even Anya Taylor-Joy, it felt less, to me, from just watching this movie, less like I want the world and its superheroes exist, but more so like I cared about this person who had kidnapped me and I escaped from. Like, she seemed to genuinely care about the man that was being, like, you know, taken over by all these personalities, like the real actual Kevin, I think his name was.
Yeah.
So I get, it's more of like a, hey, this guy, they asked me to calm him down, and once I calmed him down, they just shot him.
Yeah.
Like, it feels more like she wants to reveal that.
Oh, about that scene, I do have one other note that I forgot to mention.
Yeah.
James McAvoy is saved from himself by a hug from Anya Taylor-Joy, and that makes sense to me.
Literally me. Could you just imagine if Anya Taylor-Joy in real life just talked to you the way she does talk to James McAvoy in this movie?
Just says your full name out loud all the time.
Yeah. That would be great. Oh, I didn't mention him. James McAvoy. I'm really excited for Split. He, like, has a very odd and I'm sure challenging task here as an actor.
Oh, yeah.
And he does very well in it. Like,
I'll get ready.
When the credits roll and they list all of those names as like the parts that he plays, like that is earned, that is valid. He's not playing one character. He is playing like 12 characters.
Yeah, they're basically completely separate characters the way he plays them.
Yeah. And he, like, the way he changes his voice, his mannerisms, like his posture, his physical appearance, like even like in scene is very impressive.
The most impressive thing to me, actually, with all of that is that he got all the mannerisms and the voices down pretty much exactly how I remember them from the last movie. So, and there's a huge time gap.
Yeah.
But this trilogy took forever to get made. So,
yeah, because even these, we're talking about how we're going to watch Split next. They were still 3 years apart. Like,
yeah,
not a incredibly long, but fairly reasonable gap there.
Yeah.
But no, just, so James McAvoy is literally living my dream. Like, imagine if you got, like, hey, for this part, you just get to do a bunch of bits. You get to do a bunch of fun little character voices, and then Anya Taylor-Joy just, like, hugs you so hard until you calm down.
A bunch of bits.
Like, you just do bits for an hour, and you get to, hey, look at me, I'm this silly guy. Look at me, I'm doing this voice now. Like, I just get to do that for an hour, and then Anya Taylor-Joy just embraces you and says your name.
Anya Taylor-Joy hugs you so hard your real self comes out.
So hard that that you see your veins receding, and she just says your name in a calming voice like 20 times. That's perfect. Dream role. But he kills it. He does a great job.
He does a great job. It's great.
Is there anything we liked? Anything we didn't like?
Well, I think we can move on to the next thing, which is the question, is there a Shyamalan twist? And I think it's undisputably yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
Now,
you have a character in the background going, hey, there's a Shyamalan twist. Find the Shyamalan twist.
Well, so I think maybe now that we're 5 movies in, we can start asking ourselves, you know, is there a difference between just like a big plot twist and a Shyamalan twist? Like, does M. Night Shyamalan have a particular take on the plot twist that shines through in his movies? I don't know if we can answer that today. I don't think we should try to answer
that's a
that
good question.
definitively today. But I think it's a question we can start asking ourselves going forward.
Yeah.
Because we're seeing, I mean, the idea that he puts twists in his movies is real. I think that's pretty definitive. I don't think that's like
not like all of his movies, but like
not all, but like a lot
are a signature piece of the oeuvre.
Yeah, like I wouldn't say all of his movies have a twist, but a lot of them do. And I would say a movie like Trap plays with your idea of there being a twist in his movies, even so. Like he's aware of it.
And even Knock at the Cabin doesn't really have a twist, and it almost just kind of feels like the twist is that there is no twist.
Yeah,
like that when these mysterious strangers show up and they start spouting this nonsense about how the world is ending.
Like everything about the movie tells you there's going to be a twist at the end, and then
at the end you're like, oh, they were just 100% right. They were not bullshitting me.
No, like that was they were telling the truth the whole time.
Yes, like that feels like a twist, just in how much there's not a twist.
Yeah. So I think a question we can ask ourselves is not really today, but going forward, like, does Shyamalan do twists differently? Does he have a different way of doing it? Is the Shyamalan twist its own thing?
But we don't have to record episodes for these, but we're just on our own time. I think in addition to watching these movies, we need to look up like top 10 most famous movies with a twist ending or whatever that are not by Shyamalan and watch them. So we need to survey this is like when you're doing a research paper, like you need to survey the existing literature. You need to do your research before you make your conclusion.
Agreed.
So, you know, we need to watch Soylent Green or Planet of the Apes or whatever. Sorry, those spoiler alert.
They have
For
giant
really
famous
old
twists
movies.
in them.
Those have twists. But no, I think that is a good thing that I will consciously keep in my head as we continue this project, and maybe we can answer them by the time we get to Praying with Anger in 1992.
Yeah, definitely.
But 3.5, 3.5, 3.5.
Yeah.
I think we did mentioned his cameo, but I don't think we gave any. We just said it sort of in passing. Bruce Willis and his son operate a security store, a store that sells like security equipment.
To like
I guess
businesses and stuff.
that's like it's just like a front for their operation of vigilante justice.
Which makes sense. So it's not weird that they have a bunch of like computers and crap.
And M. Night Shyamalan is in there buying cameras, but they make it they make it seem like he was like his cameo is has a constant through line from previous movies too. Like there was he mentioned something to Bruce Willis about how he recognized him. It seemed like it was set up from a previous movie.
I'm sure there's an answer to that. Don't tell us that answer.
Okay,
we'll find it on our own.
No? All right. Well, I guess we'll find out if I'm
guessing he cameoed in these other two movies, and they're probably doing some they're not probably doing some shared universe thing. This is a shared universe thing. I'm going to guess they're probably connecting it to the way he cameoed in at least one of the other two movies, but I don't want you to tell me. I want it to be a fun little surprise.
I'm not going to say a darn thing.
But no, that is a very good point, Hans, because he's like, yeah, I definitely recognize you.
Yeah. What's that about?
I guess we'll see.
We'll see. Keep us.
I don't have anything else to say.
We are the broken. We were purified by our pain. Do not corrupt us. Bring us into the lights.
Give me a hug, Anya Taylor-Joy.
Please. So 3.5, 3.5, 3.5, various different shades of 3.5.
Yeah.
Are we? It's been so long since we recorded. Do we do a what would you watch instead, or what's the other gimmicks that we do here?
Yeah, what's our episode closing gimmick?
We haven't been doing what you'd watch instead because these are actually worth watching.
Watch this.
You should just watch it.
Good. I mean, I would recommend watch the other two movies first.
Yeah, you should watch Unbreakable, then Split, then Glass. But
yeah,
right.
Or watch them in reverse order and just sit here
wrong.
and be confused like we are.
Hey, live your life.
Or just go watch Trap again because that doesn't
go
get
watch
nearly
Trap
enough
again.
love.
Go back in time and go see it in theaters.
She was burned. It was really scary. Every Josh
hey, you want to go down that hole?
Is the best possible. Hey, does that hole look really fun? I bet it would let us go backstage. Every line read he's given, just the best possible line read.
It's very good. Okay, I think this episode's over.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's some kind of post. I'll find it.
I'm not editing this one. Zach is, so I don't.
You like hot dogs, right?
They just don't want us to record this episode.
Huh?
The world doesn't want us to record this episode. They don't want the truth to get out.
I'm definitely not helping. I'm out of it.
What do you mean you're out of it? Sick?
I'm tired. I took some NyQuil earlier.
Wait, when?
8 o'clock-ish.
You took NyQuil when we were just starting?
I feel
That's
like
pretty
crap.
Stupid. Take some Dayquil.
If I took Dayquil, then I wouldn't be able to take NyQuil until like 11, 12 o'clock.
Take a half dose of Dayquil, and then after we're done recording, take a half dose of NyQuil.
I'd rather just be zonked out.
Hans took NyQuil before we started recording.
Oh my gosh.
I am sick.
He sedated himself.
He did. We got Mr. Glass over there.